Hey, how's it going, YouTube? We had some pretty fun conversations yesterday on First Touch where they were discussing their top 10, is Vitality back, and a couple other things. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to address it in a video today. First things first, obviously the top 10 had a couple different iterations of it. We're going to look at those right away. The first one was a combination of all of the people on First Touch, like Roll Diz, T-Bates, and all that kind of stuff. And their list, I think, is overall pretty decent. I think there's a couple adjustments that could be made here and there, which I'm going to give my own top 10 at the end of the video, so make sure you guys stay tuned in for that. But the one that really caught a lot of attention was they had two guests on, which was Stumpy Goblin and Spaceman. I don't know how this list came to be what it is. I don't know how Vitality they have in second. I don't know how they have the teams that they do. I don't know how Twisted Minds is a top 10 when Twisted Minds, while they did go to 7 against Falcons in the last one, there is not enough results to, in any way or shape or capacity, to consider that unless you're just heavily recency bias. The way I'm going to look at this is a couple different things. I'm going to look at, one, a little bit of recency bias. If they were to compete right now, how would I power rank them? The second thing I would end up doing is I'm going to take into consideration about how I think they will trend going forward, how I think these teams are going to perform, how I think these teams are going to stack up based upon the end of this split coming to. People got to remember, Major 2 is only 6 weeks away. We've only got 2 qualifiers left. Like, we're almost done. It's pretty crazy to think about. So that is going to take into account how I think these guys will end up placing. This should also give you an indication of who I think is probably going to make the major and how results are probably going to play out. And then we got a couple honorable mentions and some things that I have focused there. This was my power ranking from pre-Major 1. Before we went into the major, I ranked my top 10 teams, and mates, like all these teams were top 8. Mates, Gen G, K-Corp, Falcons, Furia, Vitality, BDS, G2. Nailed it. We got literally every team in our top 8 in the top 8. Results-wise, some of these 1-goal games, you know, Game 7 OTs and stuff like that. It was pretty close. So yeah, I feel pretty confident in how my power rankings usually go. Both these teams were in the qualifier match and ended up losing. Power was my honorable mention. They lost to G2 in round 5. So like, I think we nailed it. I think we did a pretty dang good job for our power rankings last time. Keep in mind, when I did this, I did only teams that were going to the major. We're changing it this time. We're going to do some honorable mentions. We're going to do some teams that I feel moving forward are going to do a little bit more. First things first, our honorable mention is going to go to Team Secret. This, to me, is kind of a product of the same thing that happened with Space Station. In Major 1, they lost to Furia twice in quarterfinals, and they lost to Complexity in Game 7 once. If they don't play the top tier teams, very likely they find themselves in top 4 competitions and getting the points that they need to go to the major. But it's basically the exact same thing. They had to win against the teams in front of them, and they couldn't do it. Finally, for the first time, that ends up happening, just like Space Station, and they end up going and getting second place, only losing to Furia. Just saying, Team Secret is a very talented team, but has been dealt a tough hand. To me, it's going to come down to Complexity and Team Secret. One of those two have to play each other, but don't forget about Crew. Crew's very good as well. But Team Secret is my number 10 honorable mention kind of pseudo pick. I would not be surprised if this team goes into a 2-2 round in the major and is fighting for a top 8. At number 10, I got to remember what my own list is. At number 10, we've got one that I think many do agree with, which is pretty easy to do. It's got to be Space Station Gaming. Space Station finally able to control their own fate, I think, in this one. Obviously, going to 7 against G2 in the first qualifier, I think was very, very good for them for the Major 2 split. Space Station, I think all of us agree, is probably the 3rd best team in North America and just needs the opportunity to go and perform on a major and showcase that that is the case. Still think Hawks are super underrated, and that team has so much potential. LJ is finally obviously getting the love and respect that he deserves over the past couple of years, but Space Station Gaming for me is my number 10. I would have them higher, but we don't have any international competition results. It is just an assumed thing based upon strength of schedule, how they're competing in one of the main regions, so on and so forth. Outside of that, and I don't think this is going to be a surprise for any of you either, the one that's now getting the attention they deserve, if I can do the right color, is Oxygen Esports. This team, I tweeted so much about them this past weekend. Their challenge game is disruptive. It's chaotic. I don't know how well it's going to translate to LAN, but I think as long as they keep putting in the hours, Oxygen has a chance to break up the top 4. And I think that's why I give them the respect that I do. EU's top 4 is incredible. There's so much talent there, and the fact that they're able to cause a little bit of disruption, or if the teams aren't on their best, they could lose. And that's with Oxygen still trying to find their form. I think Oxygen could have went to the grand finals this past event if Archie didn't kind of taper off towards the tail end of the series. I think Oxygen has a lot of room for improvement, and I'll be honest with it. I think there's definitely some sloppiness to it. I think they're super reliant on certain things. If Joyo doesn't have MVP level performances, are the other ones going to be able to pick it up? I think the talent is there. I could watch, as I tweeted, I could watch Oski and Joyo play together all day. It was incredible. And seeing Archie take more of a selfless approach and set those things up and be the catalyst to cause that aggression was amazing. I think it's a really good role for them. So I think Oxygen has a higher peak and a higher potential than Space Station just due to individual talent, not to discredit Space Station. But I think if we saw a head-to-head to this, it'd be very close, and I would probably give it to Oxygen in 7. But beating KC has some merit and everything else. But on international, I think there are certain teams like Gentlemates that I was a little bit hesitant on to call the #1 team because I'm like, hey, they're a LAN team. Like, their challenge game, the way that they play is really, really good, and they are just frustrating to play against. Well, they just did it online too. So Gentlemates, very similar in those regards. But I think wanting to see how these teams play on LAN is kind of my hesitation before bumping them up a little bit higher. Up next, a team that is actually dropping in value quite a bit lately is Team BDS. BDS to me has been struggling. I don't know how much of this is on the fact of Monkey Moon having his car accident and what's going on there, but I am losing confidence in this team because unless Drawley's putting in hat tricks, they aren't really winning series. They haven't had the convenience or the, I guess, the easy route in that I think they used to have in the past, and maybe that's my expectations of them kind of outweighing. But I saw BDS trending in a really, really positive direction, and it hasn't quite been there as much as I would like to see. I think a lot of it is showcasing that this team may be a rebuild around Drawley in the future, because Drawley is that guy. Prof saying it in chat, and I do agree. Unless Exotic or Monkey Moon steps up and helps out Drawley, they don't look like the same team. When Monkey Moon is playing confident, he has trust in his back end, he's able to be assertive and kind of read those challenges and be one step ahead. But that really hasn't happened lately. So someone needs to step up. The first time that everybody kind of started to notice their attention and how well they played in the very first qualifier and qualifier 1 was because, hey, Drawley is as good as we think he is. Exotic's playing way more offensive. Like, they were a 3-headed monster. It seems like that's regressed a little bit. But Drawley, without a doubt, is definitely the player to watch out for. He's so good. And if the other two can get back into shape, I don't see why BDS can't be a top 8 team in the world. So, still very high praise. I just think that they could be so much better, and we've seen them be better. At number 7, I don't think this is any surprise to anybody, and they are moving a little bit up in my rankings, is Furia. This is a team that has been dominant in their region, but how do they stack up against the rest of the world? This one and the rest of these kind of come down to a very interesting conversation, because if you look at how international competition went, there were so many of those quarterfinals that were a 1-game difference, where they went the distance, a coin flip goes the other way, and all of a sudden they're now top 4 instead of top 8. I think Furia is a really stable 7. I don't think they're at the bottom of the list. I think they're super competitive. My issue with Furia is they got to learn to play defense, and that applies to most of the South America. The reason why South America is so exciting to watch is they just send the house all the time, but they're super susceptible to counterattacks. And we did see over the years them start to learn how to rotate back a little bit cleaner and play a little bit more safe. But South America in particular is very formulaic. I think they have something that works for them, but it is very easy to counter and understand because they are a systematic style of how they play offense, and it can be punished. So I think their aggressiveness is awesome, but when they go up against some of these top teams that can meet them in the midfield and can play to their pace, that's about all they've got. They are a one-trick pony, and that trick is incredible, and it's amazing to watch, but when people can read it and people can catch up to it, they tend to struggle. I would like to see a little bit more creativity on the way that they approach the game. I would like to see some different strategies on the way that they play a bit more defensive, or they buy for time with some of these low challenges, and then they move forward. But yeah, just like Prof is saying, and I agree, Prof, you're reading my brain, on land, people don't play as fast, they don't play as aggressive, they play a little bit safer, and it definitely causes some issues. Up next at number 6, and this one is probably part of a bigger arching conversation. It's Team Vitality. I keep clicking the wrong blue, and I apologize. Vitality, to me, there was this conversation that was had on First Touch this week about, has Vitality come back? Are they back to form? To which my argument was they never really left. I don't think Vitality has ever not been in form. They were a team that won 5 events in a row. They won all of spring. They won the spring major and they won the world championship as soon as Zen joined that roster. Since then, the worst they've performed is 5 through 8. They have multiple top 4 finishes and have just won another event. I understand when you're comparing them in conversation to last season where they won literally everything. This is the first time in this team's history that they've actually had to handle adversity, where they've had to handle loss. How do the players respond to it? We've got a new coach. They've never faced that level of adversity before, and they are still a dedicated top 4 team in the region. Like, Vitality will be going to the major. They will make top 8 very likely. And despite this, it is the first time I'm saying they are facing loss. I don't think they ever really fell off. Yeah, they had a bit of a hiccup because they had to figure out, okay, this playstyle didn't really work. Let's try something a bit more aggressive. Let's try some different things. And they immediately bounced back and were competitive. People forget they were in the semifinals. They lost in one. If Zen 1v2s the defense of G2 again, it's a different story. They go to the grand final and nobody's talking about them falling off. So why is it that one event is enough for everybody to be like, oh, they're trash? It's insane. Like, Vitality is still a very, very good team. My only thing is they don't look as polished or as dominant as they once did. And can they get back to it? That's part of the conversation. Because I'll admit it, the G2 Vitality series, although entertaining, definitely had some sloppiness to it. Both teams definitely had their problems. And that's why I don't have them ranked as highly, and why my next rating makes as much sense as it does. It's G2. G2 at 5. They had the head-to-head. They won an international competition. G2 is starting to regress a little bit, and I would expect them and Sathu to come with a better game plan and continue to play the aggressive, off-ball, very chippy, but also super aggressive offense that they want to. That lockdown offense that we've been seeing Europe dominate with. It's a head-to-head matchup. But trending-wise, even within their own region, they're down a little bit. So I think with that in mind, I do have G2 at 5. I don't think you need much explanation for that. I think it's pretty solidified. The next 2 are probably the toughest on this list to decide on, and it's down to a gut feeling. Both teams are going to Game 7 against the best team in the world. Both teams are playing very well and trending in a positive direction. Both teams look dominant, but have had their hiccups as well this split. With that in mind, the first one that I'm going to do here is going to be the Falcons. I don't know what color this is. It's down to. Okay. With the Falcons, I have them below Gen G, and I know a lot of people are saying Falcons is your number 3, but I'm going to try to explain it. Falcons obviously just had some struggles and some hiccups within their own region. They aren't playing as convincingly. They just got swept by Bravado. You could say the same thing about the next team, and I might as well show them because we're talking about them in pair in Gen G. I think Gen G right now is for the first time having a coach that is more analytical. I think Illusion did a really good job for vibes and trying to enable his teammates to feel good and confident in their gameplay. While Chrome has been brought in more for analytical adjustments, the like high level type play style of saying, hey, we need to make faster and quicker adjustments mid-series so we can stay more competitive so we don't fall behind. We always want to have a chance in this series, which Chrome has always been great about with Space Station. I think Gen G is trending in all the right directions. I personally think that Gen G is going to continue to ascend, and I choose to believe in that. This is a gut feeling pick, and I said even before the events happened, I predicted Gen G to win the whole thing. I thought it was going to take a little bit of time before they did so. They did it immediately. I don't expect them to go 3-2 in Swiss anymore. I expect them to do it convincingly. But for Falcons to get swept, they then have to reverse sweep Team Rock. Like they're showing some faltering. International competition is always different. I would like to believe in both of these teams doing that and being in a, like, I think we are all in for a treat. If we get the opportunity to see Gen G and Falcons play in a semifinal, fans win. It's going to be amazing. And it answers a lot of questions for me, but I'm going to believe in Gen G for now over Falcons just because of the way things are trending. And I assume they're going to stay that way. I don't think we've seen the true potential of Gen G yet, and it's going to keep going up. Up next, these last 2 are pretty straightforward. I think it's very easy to pick. I keep doing the wrong one. We've got K-Corp and then Mates. K-Corp again, Game 7 against Gentlemates. They've done a really good job. Obviously, they just lost to a team recently in Oxygen, who is absolutely vibing. But K Corp, I think, is a team that has all the mental fortitude, all the focus, all the talent they could ever want. An incredible world-class coach, ton of support. I think they are going to sure up themselves next qualifier and moving forward. I think K Corp is still an absolutely dominant team. Everybody has off days. It happens. I highly expect them to look better and improve moving forward. And Genomates has been pretty much perfect. I don't think you can disagree with that. I think they, with the major results, I was concerned about the results on LAN versus offline or online. When they played in qualifiers, they're a team that plays a very, very close format. Their challenge game is best in the world. Itachi, shoutouts to you. Their vision off ball is incredible. They have a very firm understanding of where people are and how to play for their teammates. They play such a clean game. Their boost management is incredible. Like, Genomates is the real deal. And then when you get on LAN and you get to see the peaking Juicy, the Seiko, the Itachi, that's when they become world class. Genomates is the real deal. Everybody called them a leftover team. No. They're the team. I think out of all these teams, maybe you can see some swapping here, but I think K Corp, until they get beat consistently, it's going to be tough. It's the same conversation with these. Obviously, we want to see more on international competition, but I think if you were to put them up against it, you're going to continue to see it. So that is what I've got. That is my top 10 list and honorable mention. I am curious to hear what you guys have to say. As always, your feedback and importance in the comments down below is greatly appreciated. If you guys are down there, enjoy the content, like, subscribe, notifications, turn that stuff on. Come join us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Lawler. I'm going to go and talk more about this list with my chat. But as always, we appreciate you guys taking the time to tune in. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.